Hello and welcome to this very special show. Network 18 and AB InBev have joined hands to launch the Sustainability 100 Plus. It promises to be a thought-provoking platform where our endeavor is going to be to get policymakers, government officials, industry leaders, people from civil society to really have a meaningful dialogue, a meaningful conversation about what we can do at our own individual levels to build a cleaner and brighter planet that is more livable, more equitable, and of course, more sustainable. Through the course of this campaign, we are going to put the spotlight on the various sustainable development goals. Remember, there are 17 of them, starting from eliminating poverty to building partnerships for goals. And the Indian government, through the Niti Aayog, has been tracking our own progress statewide on these many SDGs. What is going to be important as we take this conversation and this dialogue forward is to understand how industry can partner with government, how industry can partner with NGOs, with civil society to ensure that we do meet the commitments laid out as part of the SDGs, that we do ensure that business is a lot more conscious when it comes to how we go about getting things into the market and how we can, in fact, reduce our carbon footprint, how we can be water positive, plastic positive, and a whole lot more. Before I introduce you to our first set of panelists to kickstart this inaugural episode, let's first take a look at the journey.
In 2015, India agreed to the UN Sustainable Development Agenda 2030. A commitment was made to tackle climate change, fight inequality, and ensure sustainable development for all. Much progress has been made on the SDGs through policy reforms and robust schemes. But given that 2030 is not far, we need to accelerate our actions and ensure a balance between human prosperity and protecting the planet. Our aim is sustainable development, and the journey is not over. It's time to accelerate India's SDGs and leave no one behind.
Well, that was a look at where things currently stand in our journey to making the planet a lot more sustainable, a lot more livable. Let me introduce our panelists to you today. Dr. Priyadarshini, she's the General Manager, Sustainability and Community Relations at the Aditya Birla Group. The Aditya Birla Group is a conglomerate of about 15 odd companies, and they have made sustainability one of their key priorities. In fact, the topmost priority, in the words of the Chairman Kumaramangalam Birla. Also with us, Divya Sharma, the Executive Director at the Climate Group. Divya, many thanks for joining us here. And we've also got with us Karthikeya Sharma, the President, South Asia at AB InBev. AB InBev has made it very clear that sustainability is not just part of the business for them, it is business for them. And we intend to talk a little bit more about the goals that they've set out for 2025, focusing on the 4 pillars that they are going to be driving this plan on. We'll also be joined by the Minister for Environment, Mr. Prakash Javadekar, in just a bit. let me kick things off. And Karthikeya, I want to start with you. As I pointed out, for AB InBev, sustainability is not a new purpose. This has been driving your strategy for many years. In fact, as far as 2025 is concerned, your goals are focused on 4 pillars: smart agriculture, water stewardship, circular packaging, and climate action. Take me through the key milestones that have been achieved so far and what's the effort going forward.
Well, thanks, Shireen. First of all, it's amazing to finally be here at this very moment. This has been a platform that's been work in progress for a while now. For us, COVID was many things, and amongst many things, looking at the future and starting to question the role we want to play in driving an even more sustainable future for our business here in India and the impact we're going to have on communities took center stage. And so we're very happy that in this partnership with Network 18, we finally are kicking off the first panel today. And we're excited about where this could go as far as the conversations we hope to trigger. To your question on our 4 priority areas under our 100 plus sustainability platform, we're a relatively young entrant to India, where we've been here for 10 years. And when I say we're young, it pales in comparison to many other organizations that have been here a lot longer than us. But one thing that became incredibly clear is there is a remarkable convergence between what we believe are our sustainability goals across the world and those exact 4 areas being top priorities, not just for us, the community, but also the government here in the country, as well as the larger society. And so for us, 2 areas amongst those 4 took greater prominence in our plans. The first was smart agriculture. There is barley, and for us working with barley farmers across the barley belts and working with them to provide to them cutting edge practices, access to the kind of technology that can help them improve their yields, improve their profitability, provide to them an ecosystem of sustainability, also with regards to the larger household, which involves the women in the family, and giving an opportunity to this community to become more prosperous and not be left behind, was something that we focused a great deal on to begin things. And today there are about 1,200 farmers with an idea to continue to expand this network of people who are becoming more and more self-dependent and can provide for themselves. Is one of the first milestones that we consider to be something we can be proud of. The other area that we focused on after smart agriculture was water stewardship. And it should come as no surprise, India has one of the most stressed water tables amongst the emerging economies. If this is not addressed, akin to the doomsday clock from back in the day during the Cold War, time's running out. And so are our waterbeds. They're drying at an alarming pace. And we feel quite pleased with the contribution we're making, not just in water-stressed areas around some of our facilities, but also in urban centers where we may not have a manufacturing facility, but we want to do our role in not just providing water, but also clean water, because we started to understand how much just providing water was not enough. It was also important to look at the sanitization that needs to go into the supply of water, and we consider that to be the other important milestone. Circular packaging and renewable energy, which is more climate action, is still something there's a lot we intend to do in, but smart agriculture and water stewardship are certainly places where we can say we're exactly where we want it to be and where we want to accelerate.
Okay, that's a great start, Karthikeya. Many thanks for taking us through very comprehensively the 4 pillars that your strategy is focused on. And I will delve a little deeper into what you're doing with the 1,200 farmers that you're working with, etc. But before that, to people who are watching this, the first question, why would a beer company care so much about sustainability, right? I mean, why was this part such an integral part of your purpose?
That's a great question, Shireen. I've been with the company now for about 16 years as a young trainee, starting off in the beer capital of the planet, which was Brussels, straight out of school. One thing became evidently clear. Our entire product is born out of the farm, is born out of what the planet provides to us, which is barley, water, and yeast. It's all coming from Mother Earth. And then, of course, it finds its way in packaged formats in many different occasions that bring people together. But it became evidently clear to us a very long while ago our purpose to bring people together is going to be pretty short-lived if you're bringing people together in a world that's becoming more and more unlivable. We want to bring people together, as we say, in a better world where people feel good about the planet we're living in, not just for our generation, but the future generations to come. So our purpose evolved from bringing people together to bringing people together in a better world. And the four pillars that helped us define what we mean by better world are communities that are becoming more and more independent on account of our contribution to them and empowering them, which was smart agriculture. The second pillar of us taking from the planet, but giving back even more became the bedrock of water stewardship. A third, climate action, which is the many, many, many facilities where we make our wonderful products need to be a net positive contributor in terms of air quality. And lastly, when we think about circular packaging, it's at the heart of what we believe needs to be, again, an area of our sustainability goals that needs even greater action. And I think we can talk a lot more about it as we go along. But companies need to just step up now and not wait for a precious moment sometime 5 years from now before they can decide that it's no longer make, use, and throw. It's make, use, remake, and reuse. And sort of that's the principle of it.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And I think it is time that we don't wait for government mandates or government diktats and for companies to do the right thing. You're right in pointing out that what you use, you must replenish, and that should be part of corporate social responsibility and corporate governance. Dr. Lopamudra Priyadarshini, let me ask you about the strategy that's driving things at the Aditya Birla Group, because like we just heard there from Karthikeya, Kumar Mangalam Birla has made it clear that as part of the purpose of the Aditya Birla Group, sustainability will be the top priority. As I pointed out, there's 15 odd companies within the group. If I were to just take a look at what you're doing as far as Ultratech is concerned, and the reason I bring that up is because it is one of the top 10 companies globally on the Dow Jones Sustainability Index when it comes to construction and the materials category. Take me through what's driving the sustainability strategy for the AB Birla Group.
Yeah, hi, good morning. So actually, sustainability at IBG is a first and prime important aspect. Aditya Birla Group has started, if you can see the report, less than 2-degree futures. I will first take you what is ABG's vision.
I seem to be having a little bit
because we as a nation, as a society.
Dr. Lopamudra, we're losing you in bits, so I think we lost a little bit of what you were just saying. Maybe you could start over.
Yes, hi. So I was just saying that sustainability is a core of our business in ABG. I play a very small role in it in Hindalco Industries Limited. We have a nation. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
We as a nation, as a society and a business, we have achieved tremendous progress in 100 years. So ABG has grown at $44.3 billion US, and we are in the League of Fortune 500. It's very important. And we are now in a precarious situation. Have signed the Paris Agreement commitment. We have done that commitment that we will keep the global temperature rise under 2 degrees above pre-industrial levels. Yet our stated intended nationally determined contribution will only keep the temperature rise to 3.4%. But we will not contribute until they are legislated to do so. We have worked hard to create a sustainable business framework that helps signpost us to the requirement of the potential hazards and opportunities on the way to 2030 and 2050. So it seeks to ensure that we future-proof our business so that they continue to be successful in a longer term. Climate change and the Herculean task of moving from a business as usual 6 degree to a transformation below 2 degree trajectory is already shaping our operating environment and our value chain today. So at Aditya Birla, the very major company, we have worked out a framework over the last 5 years, followed a logical, sustainable business framework. The framework recognized that the future will be that the future will be and intended has to be radically different to today. Importantly, it makes it clear that we must avoid acting too late. This framework is mostly a funnel, and mostly we are working on those aspect of it. We believe that business getting ourselves on a below 2-degree trajectory will mean a radical change in our business and our all group companies. It will require levers to pull by businesses, government and society, all while adapting to the physical impacts guaranteed by our previous emissions. So this is further going ahead, I will explain more about that framework and how we are intending to achieve that.
Okay. I'll get into the specifics in just a second, but let me get Divya into the conversation as well. Divya, on the back of what you've heard from Karthikeya as well as Dr. Lopamudra, do you feel more hopeful today that there is more pressure building on corporate citizens to do the right thing, especially now with the move towards ESG funding, ESG investing? Is the pressure on for companies to actually not just comply with what is mandated, but to go a step further and really ensure that the right thing is done?
Yeah, sure. Good question. And I think, yes, not only is there a pressure on the businesses, but in our experience working with businesses very closely in Climate Group, we feel that businesses have that particular understanding and notion and intent to work towards sustainability. And there are a lot of initiatives that we see businesses are already taking. Some of the things have, come forward by the impact of COVID as well. I mean, rapid digitization and business model innovation in the light of the problems that were created by COVID before us. But even before that, things around energy productivity, switching to renewable energy and electricity, and adopting EVs is something that is driving business sustainability at the moment. Our hundreds program, of which we stand for, like EV 100, which is electric vehicles 100, is a global initiative bringing together forward-looking companies committed to accelerating the transition to electric vehicles. It already has 92 global members and about 4.8 plus million vehicles committed to electrify. This also includes more than 5,000 charging locations globally. And in India, we are rapidly, having memberships from businesses. Our newest one is Flipkart, and similarly, our energy productivity initiative, which brings together a growing group of energy smart companies committed to improving their energy productivity and doing more with less. So the third one is RE100, which is renewable electricity, where the world's most influential companies committed to securing 100% of their global electricity consumption from renewable sources. Globally, there are 268 companies, and about 70 plus companies are having operations in India. So I think exciting times, and we are liking the kind of impetus that we see on sustainability at the moment, particularly from the business side.
Well, that's good to hear. But, since you talked about electric mobility and you talked about the experience here in India with companies signing on, you brought up Flipkart. But the cost of transition, and that seems to be the biggest challenge into mass electric vehicle mobility. What do you see can be done there to try and make it much more affordable? The government has, of course, got a subsidy scheme in place. The FAME scheme is in place, but we really haven't seen much traction. So what do you believe will need to be the lever to really push this, create that demand stimulus?
I think, so of course, FAME is important. FAME 2, where government has approved the scheme, and there is now outlay of about 10,000 crores for a period of 3 years, commencing from last year, 2019, right, April. And out of the total budgetary support, there has been 86% of fund has been allocated for demand incentives, so as to create demands for electric vehicles in the country. And this particular phase aims to generate demand by way of supporting around 7,000 electric buses, about 5 lakh electric three-wheelers, also electric four-wheeler passenger cars. and electric two-wheelers. So, some kind of emphasis on creation of charging infrastructure will also help, create that demand and have people come out and, adopt EVs much more, willingly than ever before, I would say.
Okay, yes, charging infrastructure is going to have to be part of the solution if we do want to make electric mobility take off in a much bigger way. But let me welcome Environment Minister Mr. Prakash Javadekar into the conversation. Mr. Javadekar, many thanks for joining us here on this Network 18 special conversation that we are hosting to take the sustainability dialogue forward. Since there was a lot of talk around how COVID is impacting businesses and how COVID is also impacting behavior, let me start by asking you, Mr. Javadekar, consumption of water has increased on account of the COVID pandemic, wash your hands and all of that. That's been the big message, and that's been part of the solution to try and deal with COVID. But how can we counter this with the need to ensure that there is a more judicious use of water? Of course, the water mission is part of the government stated priority list as well.
First of all, I'm very happy to be joining this program organized by Network 18. This is on water sustainable use is very important. And Shireen, I'm happy to answer your question. The answer is very simple. See, we waste water more than actually hand cleaning. So if you restrict the water usage for practically hand cleaning, there is no much use done, and the records don't show that there is tremendous water is being used for washing hands or mopping faces. That doesn't happen that way but one thing is sure, that we must inculcate in our minds the habit of saving water, because I believe that saving water is generating water, and therefore saving water is the virtue which we must establish and ingrain in the minds of students, children and everybody, so that even while you are pasting the teeth, you need not waste and continue the tap for 5 minutes. You can close it and use it only when you have to gargle or doing something, washing your mouth. That is the way. Use only when it is necessary. Don't open the tap at a full speed. You can have little quantity also coming out, and it is sufficient enough. And so don't waste water. The bottom line is don't waste water. And your sustainable use also makes the sense, because the essence of sustainable use is again saving water, generating water, recycling water, and there are many other ways how we can generate and hold on the water, because water is a scarce resource.
Right in pointing it out that water is in fact a scarce resource. But Mr. Javadekar, we were talking about the Paris Accord, the climate agreement, and India is a signatory to that. With respect to our performance on the various sustainable development goals, I know that is something that Niti Aayog has been tracking and monitoring the performance of various states. Where do things currently stand?
I think sustainability is a habit to be formed in and using all resources wisely. So sustainability is using less resources to produce more. Sustainability is using resources often. Sustainability is using resources again and again, and let us not waste anything. So save water, generate water. Save energy, generate energy. And now there are many ways, solar also and everything. All these are sustainable practices. And if we do that, it will not be only less emission. India's contribution otherwise also is just 3% to the historical emissions, because of which we experience the climate change. We are not responsible for climate change. But we are the sufferers of the climate change, and therefore we want to be part of the solution also. And therefore today's even current scenario, our share of emissions is just 6 to 7%. And with that also, what we want to be sustainable. And therefore our SDG goals are very important, and we are tracking each goal and we are achieving it, right from human indexes to all the aspects of life. We are on the track to achieve our SDG goal before 2030.
Mr. Javadekar, I will come back to you, sir, and it's good to know that we're staying the course. But Karthikeya, I want to come back to you now and get a little more specific. You talked about the work that you are doing with farmers under the smart agriculture pillar that you're focusing on. You said you're working with 1,200 farmers here in India. What has been the change in the use of technology, and what has more importantly been the change from a farmer's perspective in terms of income, etc.? What are the big changes that you've been able to drive in the manner in which the farmer is producing, as well as how it's benefited the farmer?
Sure. I suppose one of the most important things, and I think it's come to light more recently with some of the voices we're hearing from across the board with regards to these new farm laws, is what is principally the most important thing for somebody who produces, in this case the farmer, is to have the belief that there will be security of his produce being purchased. What we're very proud of is even during COVID, with a whole level of uncertainty like we've never seen before, we've been able to create the required infrastructure, from the ability of connecting the farmer to a larger ecosystem of buyers, being able to play our role in the quality of the yield that the farmer has produced, and ensure that the predictability of his produce actually being purchased and a certain level of income coming his way, which can lead to a very different level of empowerment, actually played out. And so for us, a landmark moment was indeed COVID, where there was every reason to believe this should be a leap year for everybody, including the farmers. But I think the resilience shown not just by these amazing group of people who finally produce the output, but also the teams involved in being able to work through the adversity, has given us a great reason to believe that all the inputs that have gone in, from connecting them to various levels of research organizations. One that come to mind is the Indian Institute of Wheat and Barley Research. We've got a few others who provide incredible data on how can the land be made more fertile, how despite there at times being hits and misses, if you will, at times the produce may not necessarily be there, how can we still ensure that his ecosystem, which involves his family, is actually starting to find ways and means to also cater to their own requirements. And by that, we've got kitchen gardens for women. There are spent malt, which is usually just produce coming out of the brewing process, that we provide to them, which goes as cattle fodder, and again, very, very healthy, high protein. So these aspects of the ecosystem as well, the family, the livestock, are all supported through this larger outreach that we're undertaking. We don't believe we've scratched the surface. We don't believe this number or what we've done with them is anywhere close to what we see being a possibility, India being an agrarian economy even now. And so it excites us a great deal that this relatively smaller pilot, if I can call it that, in a few markets with these 1,200 farmers, has given us a great deal of insight on how we want to scale from here.
Okay, is there a target that you're working towards? Because as you point out, this is a pilot. 1,200 is barely scratching the surface for a country like ours. But is there a target that you're working towards?
Oh, absolutely. So we've got a cross section of brands, some of which have very stringent requirements of the kind of ingredients that go in it. One of our principal goals is, over the next 5 years, we intend to source all the produce or the raw material, if you will, that goes into a bottle of beer from farmers here locally. Of course, this is a very cyclical process, because all the insights that go into the kind of quality output you need finally comes through in harvesting season, with a 6 to 12 month lag. So there's a great deal of patience needed. There's a great deal of persistence needed because you've got to stay the course. So if you think about all the products that we will produce and sell in India being sourced entirely in India, we're talking of a pretty significant jump in the kind of farmer outreach and spread we have. I wouldn't give a number right now, but what I can safely say that, as I said earlier, 1,200 would be representative of the term scratching the surface, because we'd see this becoming a significantly larger pool of farmers. More importantly, who would have achieved true independence and empowerment, because this produce and the way they go about it now is reasonably self-sustaining as far as their needs are concerned.
Okay, that's good to hear. Dr. Lopamudra as well as Divya, I want to focus on, renewable energy, since that is something that all three of you have spoken about. And Dr. Lopamudra, let me start by asking you, because, moving more and more towards renewable energy consumption is a stated part of the objective for you at the AB Birla Group. So can you take me through the milestones that have been achieved so far across the group and what more is planned on that front?
Shireen?
Yes.
So I just lost you for some time. So we were talking about renewable energy. Would you repeat that for me again, please?
Yes, that's correct. I was asking you about the milestones already achieved on the renewable energy consumption side and what you're targeting going forward.
We are moving towards the target because ABG does have a lot of group companies. I work in limited. In Hindalco industry, because we are into metals, so we do consume, we try to reduce the consumption of coal and try to increase renewable energy. So in our every site, we have solar panels and solar energy. Somewhere we are trying to reduce the carbon footprint and all the zero discharge plant. We are working on a zero discharge plant where water footprints are, we are increasing water footprint. While working in community, in every surrounding villages, we work in 2 blocks, almost 1,200 villages around 2 districts of Odisha, where I am. So where we are trying to, kind of work in water recharge center, in and increasing the water aquifers. So that does we do the save water. When we talk about energy, we work on, we generate almost 20 megawatt for each unit solar energy. We are working towards a lot of innovative products in wind. So yes, we are in that path, and soon we will also have a target until 2030, 2050. We will be, working mostly half of our energy should be coming from renewable energy.
Okay, well, that's the path to moving towards more renewable energy consumption. Divya, let me ask you, we've seen prices come off so sharply when we talk about renewable energy, and that really has made it easier for people to be able to access it. How do you see the journey from here on?
Yeah, I think, Shireen, so I think because the prices have come down and the policies are supporting at the moment in terms of renewable energy adoption, our targets as country, India's targets for switching to renewable energy also support. So for example, India's NDC aim to base 40% of the total power generation capacity on fossil fuel resources by 2030. With international support and technology transfer. So we are looking at 175 gigawatt of renewable energy by the year 2022. That marks 75 years of independence. And the G20 summit, Prime Minister Mr. Modi also announced that we are being more ambitious. We are looking at achieving 450 gigawatts by 2030. So also in our experience of our RE100 campaign, I think the companies are ready, they are prepared, they are looking at ways and means to adopt, and they are doing this in a targeted manner. So some of the companies that we work with in India have target as early as 2030 and 2025 respectively. So to become about, ranging from 60% to 100% renewable electricity run, not only in terms of their operations, but also in terms of the overall energy demand that they have for their industry. So I think this is quite encouraging, and I think besides some of the challenges which can be tackled very soon, I think we are on a good road. The roadmap is quite clear and good.
Yes, and we have seen significant acceleration in the efforts to move towards renewable energy consumption. But let me go back to the Minister, Mr. Prakash Javadekar. Mr. Javadekar, since we're talking about renewable energy, let me also talk to you about the logistics and the supply chain. The government has stated its intent to move towards a multimodal policy. Of course, there have been emission norms that have been tightened over the years. Take us through what more we should expect on that front. What kind of efforts are being put in there?
I think the corporates have learned much during the pandemic, and they have started work from home using minimum resources, minimum inventory, and many other things. So sustainable practices have already been implemented by the corporate world. What I want to say is there are 2-3 ways of reserving water and preserving water. One is wetlands. We have 7 lakh wetlands in our country. Many wetlands are encroached, many wetlands are not there now, and they don't exist. So we have to restart using those streams of water because there are many natural water bodies formed all over the country, and there are many man-mades also. And so these wetlands are very important, and preservation and conservation of wetlands is a main item to be taken up in, and we have planned for that. And now, as you know, we are concentrating on hundreds and thousands of wetlands. There is people's participation, and there are scientific methods by which wetlands can be revived, and people are doing it. It has become a public movement in many parts of the country. That's a good feature of this. So at individual level, water harvesting from your rooftop is also important because it saves your water tremendously. You can store water in the ground and use it. Bore wells and recharging bore wells is all important. Then water harvesting in the hilly region, in forest, we have already started water and fodder augmentation in forest areas so that the animals don't come out of forest. That is our effort.
That's as far as water management is concerned. And yes, India does need much better water management. It is a ticking time bomb that we are dealing with. But Karthikeya, I want to come back to you now. Since this is so core to your purpose as an organization, it's so core to your business strategy, how do you communicate this to the consumer? Is it part of your marketing strategy as well?
For us, one of those really important moments in recognizing how much we want to commit to this idea of our purpose being bringing people together in a better world emanated from one of our principal stakeholders, which are our own employees first, before anything else. We're a fairly young company. We attract people who are fairly ambitious about the impact they want to leave in the world. They've joined a world-class organization like ours. And we're seeing a pretty tremendous a call to action, if you will, first and foremost, that is coming through our own organization. And we recognized how important it was for employees to be connecting to this greater purpose that the organization shares as well. As far as being able to then take this out to our fans, the consumers who finally consume our beer, it has been a remarkable coming of age. When I talk about consumer awakening, I think consumers want to be involved with products that are having a net positive impact on the world around them. They're aware. They don't fall for gimmicks. Organizations that can think this can be one campaign or another and essentially come across as being too clever for their own good, I think are going to get called out. The organizations that will build lasting bonds with consumers would be the ones who've truly pivoted towards a triple bottom line approach, be vocal about it, and be absolutely consistent in the way we go about it, which doesn't call for any kind of shortcuts. So if it's a Corona that has adopted 100 beaches across the world, because that is what we call the spiritual home of the brand, we're cleaning up that massive, floating island in the Pacific, and we're playing our role there. We've engaged with Thor, no less. Chris Hemsworth is one of our big global brand ambassadors that's helping us with this big challenge. Whether it's Stella Artois, that is providing clean drinking water for 5 years to communities across the world. Every time people buy a chalice, this glassware in which Stella's consumed, or it's Budweiser, to Divya's point earlier, where not just India, but the world over, we've committed that by 2025, Budweiser across the world, including here in India, would be produced at facilities that would be 100% renewable. And finally, all the packaging formats that we have should be remade and reused. So if you think about our entire value chain, we're very clear that this is where we want to go. And our consumers are starting to recognize that, but we didn't start communicating about it till we weren't entirely clear that this is a commitment that's going to last the next 100 years and not just the next 2 summers for a particular campaign.
No, you're absolutely right in pointing out that consistency is going to have to be the need of the hour, and there are conscious consumers who are watching corporations closely, as they should. But Dr. Lopamudra, let me come back to you and ask you about the kind of commitments that you are making and what you hope to now achieve over the next few years. What will be prioritized in terms of the goals that you hope to achieve? Dr. Lopamudra, can you hear me?
Shireen?
Yes, I can hear you.
See,
Go
in
ahead.
coming, in coming years, there are what we call SDG 9, that we have to build strong infrastructure, and with this challenge, we understand what COVID has taught us, and is that we have to build strong infrastructure, may it be digital, and may it be transportation, because what we see in our units going ahead is
we're having trouble with your line,
Hello?
Dr. Lopamudra. You're breaking up, unfortunately. Divya, let me ask you, in terms of the milestones that you're hoping to commit yourselves to.
Sure. So in terms of the milestones that we hope to, see, basically what we do is work very closely with businesses and some national government on climate action. And our purpose is to accelerate climate action and support as much as possible for these businesses to come to that kind of ambition and to achieve those ambitions that we hold through our campaigns, and support businesses in their own sustainability roadmap. So most of our campaigns look at, particularly the renewable energy one looks at, transparency, ambition, impactful procurement, sustainability and influence, just for example. And we work closely with them, to give them those opportunities and platform for peer-to-peer learning, support and informing through webinars and initiatives, and providing them those forums to get acquainted with what others are doing globally as well as nationally. And celebrating leadership, and in terms of communicating what is being done and being transparent around it, and policy influencing to unlock corporate markets. So that's something, we are looking at. And looking at the climate decade that we are already in 2021 now, some of the focus areas for Climate Group will be looking at how what's happening in terms of green recovery and growth, low carbon development, linking all the work that we do to these major, areas of interest as well as significance in terms of climate action. So clean and efficient energy and mobility. Of course, and water security, because we are talking about India, and that's of utmost importance for us. Resilience and adaptation, which in the Indian context becomes all the more important because we are more vulnerable than we need to mitigate, for example. So I think this is all, in a nutshell as to what we want to do in the coming 10 years from now. And definitely working with governments and supporting them as much as possible.
You spoke about working with the government, and that partnership is going to be crucial to create that network effect. But Karthikeya, we've got questions coming in from the audience watching the program. So let me get right down to the questions. What is a successful example of your organization leveraging the power of partnerships to drive sustainability and SDG goals? Divya was just talking about the need to partner with the government to really get that scale going, but take me through some interesting partnerships that you've been able to ink and forge forward.
Yeah, I think that that's an important element of organizations that are pivoting towards sustainability being part of their core business, is to foster this community of partnerships. We're quite happy that we've been able to, through two initiatives, one a global initiative called Accelerator 100 and another called the Innovation Hub here in India. We've been able to foster through individuals, entrepreneurs, growth hackers, scientists, and many others, organizations as well, an opportunity to put out challenges that we're facing today, and an opportunity to hack those challenges with creative solutions that can be streamlined. We don't believe at this point we have anything but clarity around when we think about our first pillar, which is smart agriculture, the other which is water stewardship. An idea I would like to cite here that has come out of any of those two initiatives, Accelerator 100 and Innovation Hub, but what I can talk about is this idea that when we look at circular packaging in particular, we're quite impressed with the kind of technological solutions that we are currently exploring, that are early stage ideas that need to be developed. When we think about blockchain being utilized through some very, very interesting startups to trace the kind of single-use packaging formats that we have that are out there, and how do we trace and recover and reuse, or remake rather before we reuse, is one example that comes to mind. But again, I'd be mindful of the fact that these are early stage technological solutions that we're still sort of exploring and trying to understand more about. It is exciting, though, that in a country like India, solving sustainability challenges through technology is something that I think is only going to help us accelerate problems, because that's what technology can do. But I'm afraid I don't have a concrete example per se. Maybe the next time we're chatting about this to the end of the year, we should have something that's tested out with some hard results to bring to you.
Well, I certainly hope so. You've also preempted the question that's coming in just now, saying what is the role that corporates can play in driving innovative sustainability solutions with startups? And you talked about the Accelerator 100 program as well as the Innovation Hub. So you've preempted the question that's coming from our audience. But let me put that across to Divya. And if we have Dr. Lopamudra on a better line, hopefully we'll get her to comment on that as well. Divya, the power of partnerships, the power of innovation, anything specific that you can share with us in terms of what's worked so far?
Yes, sure. So starting with working with businesses, I think we thrive on the power of partnership, I would say. Most of the time we are very closely working with these businesses who come down to us and become part of our campaigns and adhere to the target set which they set for themselves to become 100% on some of these campaigns on energy productivity, electric vehicles, or renewable electricity. So, for example, Tata Motors have a target of 2030, and they are about to reach the 50% by 2022 itself. Similarly, with Mahindra and Infosys. So there are many companies, big companies that we work with. And these partnerships and networks not only help us work with these big companies who to take it up across their value chains and also within their overall, company network, but also influence other smaller businesses to come forward and be part of these huge partnerships. And the range of collaboration that our platform give is really huge, and it's very important, particularly at the juncture we are in terms of policy making in India, and the impetus that is given at the moment to the transition to carbon neutrality and carbon dioxide emission reduction.
Well, Dr. Lopabuddha, let me ask you, the kind of partnerships that you've been able to ink, especially with the startup ecosystem, if any.
And Ayog on various sustainability indexes. When we talk about partnership, recently I'll give you a very live example of the unit. We have partnered with one of the leading organization in livelihood, BRLF, for creating 50 agri-entrepreneurs, and targeting 2 districts. So it's a large impacted where we are trying to make the farmers mostly farm entrepreneurs rather than making just a farmer, just being a labor or a farmer. We want to make them an entrepreneur, number one. Number two, we have set up an incubation center in a rural city of rural village of Odisha, targeting creating 300 entrepreneurs in coming time. Government, we work closely with Odisha government. We when we talk about BRLF, we have worked with the central government, Odisha government, OLM, and CSO partners. We don't believe in working in partnership, just signing a contract, but we ensure that if a project or if an initiative has to be sustainable, it has to be financial implication of these should also go to all the partners. Then everybody feels ownership. Very important that the community also a big partner to most of our initiatives and most of our work, what we do on ground.
No, you're absolutely right. I think community has to be at the center of not just the dialogue, but at the center of the execution plan to ensure that it is an effective one. I think we've got one more question that's coming in from our audience, and I think, Karthikeya, let me put that to you. And, what's to your mind has been the biggest challenge in being able to chart this journey, and what's been the biggest positive, what's been the biggest highlight?
Well, I'm a half glass full sort of a guy, but let me therefore start with what's been the big plus coming out of our journey that we've kicked off. We would like to think for a very long time, India has been the country where all efforts by individuals, organizations, or corporates have had very little impact because it just seems like it's a drop in the ocean. I think we have a coming of age moment here where organizations almost in unison are agreeing that companies have to play a more proactive role in engaging with stakeholders in society, build partnerships like some of the co-panelists have been speaking about, and not just depend on the government to pave the way and almost enforce action. And so the power of the moment we have today, just about every organization, irrespective of its size and scale, committing to goals, they may be short, medium, or long term, is a hugely encouraging moment. And for us, the big positive has been how seamlessly we seem to have crossed the hump, if you will, of this belief that when you start focusing on sustainability and looking at your entire value chain, it's going to lead to distraction in what you do. It's going to lead to, higher cost, which at times can worry organizations. But remarkably enough, what we felt is when you start to think more about people and the planet in addition to just profits, you start to see a path that becomes supremely exciting because it starts to become a win-win equation, which is what every organization should be thinking. And so to that end, I would say the journey here in India has been tremendously gratifying. If I do talk about the challenge, I would at this stage say there is just so much that organizations can do that I think being focused becomes a very important attribute here for companies to identify what is it that they believe they want to solve in their value chain as far as the problem to solve, and stay focused on, first of all, fixing that. Otherwise, India is the kind of place where you can very easily get distracted, particularly as an organization that wants to do a great deal of good. So we're very happy that with these 4 pillars of smart agriculture, water stewardship, climate action, and circular packaging, this is our focus for the next 5 to 10 years. Our goals for the next 5 years are very clear. And we want to first and foremost deliver this through community and broad-based partnerships with government, individuals, and organizations before we try to take on other problems to solve.
Well, I think you've very comprehensively summed up what I think should be the larger message on focusing so that you can actually build scale to drive the kind of change that we wanted to see. But Mr. Javadekar, I want to come back to you for the last few questions, sir. On ESG compliance, we now have ESG reporting, we have ESG investments, ESG compliance. How are you looking at this as a development from a government's perspective?
I think they can start, charity begins at home. So they can start from their own premises, making it green, making it clean, making it water sensitive, means conservation of water, recycling of water, reusing the water, and making more greenery around. That also starts making it a sustainable practice of maintaining the campus. And this is what we will also recognize through our various schemes.
So finally, sir, since there's a lot of focus on Make in India, how can we ensure that Make in India is sustainable too?
I think my message is very simple. Sustainability is the catchword of this generation, because with the population explosion and with finite resources, you have to tie up with you have to use lesser resources to do the same job, and therefore preservation and conservation are both very essential, and saving is also part of the culture. So we have to revive the water bodies also. We have to revive the rivers also. To revive the rivers, we have to plant and make afforestation a people's movement along the both sides of river, because if you plant more trees on the riverbed and on the 1 kilometer or 2 kilometer areas of river in their watershed, then you receive and the rivers are revived. So this is what is the practice, and we must go ahead with it.
Appreciate you joining us here on the inaugural episode of the launch of the sustainability campaign. Dr. Lopamudra, Divya and Kartikeya, thanks very much for joining us today. We appreciate your time, and we do hope that these conversations will ensure that more people, more corporate citizens start to think about adding sustainability as part of their purpose and as part of their plans for the next few years. Thanks very much for your time. Appreciate you joining us. We will wrap things up, but there's a lot more that's going to be coming up here on Network 18. So stay tuned. We will keep you updated on all the action.
There is